My rant today is, well, let me just give you a scenario. I'm thinking about adoption, and I have a really good friend who I totally trust who adopted 5 years ago. And I'm not quite sure which agencies or which route to take. So I started asking my friend because I figure she'll have some really good input. So I start by asking what agency she adopted from. And she said, I adopted from Adoption ABC, and I had a really great, I loved them. You have to go there. I'll give you the name of the person that I worked with. But I really think you should go there. You'll love it. Or, oh, I worked with Adoption Agency X 4 years ago, and we love our son so much, but I would never go back there. We had the worst time, and we had a fall through at first, and they just didn't give us all the information, and we just didn't have a great experience. I would tell you not to go there. So is this a good idea? In my eyes, the answer is yes and no. Yes, in that it is always great to get the information and ask people in general how they feel about adoption, what their story is. You're going to hear a lot of different stories. But when it comes to making decisions for you, don't compare yourself. That is the absolute worst thing you could do in adoption. It'll just reek of fear all over the place. It'll freeze you from moving forward. You may make some horrible decisions, and let me tell you why. You can't compare yourself to others, and you also cannot get advice from others unless you know all the things. So let me tell you what all the things are. When you start the adoption process, you're asked about your criteria. What are you open to? What races are you open to? What drug exposures you're open to? What mental health you're open to? And that's a huge thing. So if your friend who you're taking advice from was only open to a Caucasian, no drug exposure baby, and you're sitting here open 4 years later, you're open to all races and you're okay with some drug exposure, the comparison of their situation and your situation may be completely different. The other thing is staff at the agency could change. The trends in adoption might be different now. You know, when I opened my business 6.5 years ago, it was very common. It was I shouldn't say common, but it happened a lot where people did adopt. There were a lot of full Caucasian babies with no drug exposure. That was common, or it happened a lot 6.5 years ago. We don't see that very much anymore. So trends change. Staff at agencies change. The protocol and operations of agencies change. So unless you know all the details, and unless it happened yesterday, that advice that you got from your friend, although very well intentioned, may be detrimental to you to take it. When we are working with our families and they're ready to sign up with agencies, not only do we listen to all their criteria, budget is also another thing that plays into it, but we stay up to date on the statistics and what's going on with all the agencies so that at the time that you are ready to apply, you know what's been happening at these agencies within the past 2 months. And unless you know the questions to ask and all of those criteria of other people, then asking somebody what their experience is no reflection on what your experience may be. Somebody might tell you to go a certain route because they waited 3 months and then they were matched. And then you go that route and 2 years later and you're not matched and you can't understand because your friend adopted in 3 months. So how could things change so much? Well, things didn't change. You're just two different people. So I see this posted a lot in social. How long was your wait? Can someone tell me about this agency? And these are all fine questions. I'm not saying not to ask them. But there's other questions you have to ask too, which you may or may not feel comfortable asking. So are you comfortable in asking somebody, okay, can you tell me what race you were open to and what your budget was and what exposure, and is your child drug exposed or not? And all those things. And what's the agency seeing these days? So I really warn you to take heed. Don't worry about what other people's journeys looked like. Stay in your own lane. Build the team around you that you trust and put your trust in them. And they will get all the information they need from you to be able to guide you in a way that makes sense for you at the time that you are walking down your own path. Does that make sense? So comparing yourself to other people, first of all, does it help you? Does it help you get to where you want to be? No. And a lot of times people start doing that too after they've been waiting a while and they're getting antsy and fear starts creeping up. I see all these other, I'm gonna use single women. I see all these other single women matching. Why aren't I? Number one, go meditate. Say a prayer. That's not going to get you any closer. And it comes back to, well, you don't know where these people live, what they look like, what their activities are, what expectant mothers they were able to present to because of what their criteria was, what their budget is. So all those things matter. And the only thing that matters is that the right expectant mom is looking for you, who you are, what you're open to, what you like to do, who your family is, who your friends are. That person is out there. But you have to stay in your lane and stick with your own journey. If you're an athlete and you're in track and field, you're not looking behind you and you're not looking beside you. You got your blinders on and you're moving forward. And while I think information is good and gathering information and hearing about other people's experiences, do that for the big picture. But when it comes down to making decisions for you, build a team that you trust, put your trust in them, and don't start second guessing yourself. Because that is only going to stir up a lot of negative emotion in you. And you need to save that energy to be excited and to nurture your baby when that baby comes home to you. So I hope that makes sense to you. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Don't compare yourself to others. Don't take the advice of others unless they know your exact situation and they know that they are answering, giving you solid advice based on who you are and what you're open to.